The corruption cover-up from senior government officials who are sworn to uphold their duties and accountability for the American public, they are the ones that violated that trust the most internally and need to be held accountable. Documents are being released weekly by Johnny Ratcliffe and Tulsi, things like the Durham Annex, which we've known have existed this entire time, but were classified for political reasons. So we've assembled a team of accountability, and we're going to deliver for the American people.
FBI Director Kash Patel is urging congressional committees to publicly release documents related to the Durham Annex, which could prove to be the smoking gun in the Russia hoax. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Anita Vogel, along with Lydia Hu, Jason Chaffetz, and Kevin Cork, and this is the Big Weekend Show. Troves of documents have been declassified, showing how top Obama intel officials violated standards and pressured lower-ranking officials to accept the narrative that Putin helped Trump win the 2016 election. But the declassified annex to the Durham report reveals the origins of this narrative may lie in the Clinton campaign. Emails allegedly from a George Soros-connected official describe how Hillary Clinton signed off on a plan to connect Trump with Russia, while implying the FBI would later add credibility to this claim. Joining us now for our big close-up tonight is former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. He is also a senior partner at the Conservative Partnership Institute. Mark, it's great to have you with us tonight. I want to start with this Durham Annex. What new information could be released? What can you tell us?
Well, Anita, obviously, Durham had a huge investigation that took many months. Many of us thought that it took a lot longer than it should have. And yet what we're starting to see is the coordination that happened between the Clinton campaign, between those in the three-letter agencies that we're all too familiar with. But I think the troubling thing that appears to be coming out is that over and over and over again, there was real pressure at the very top levels of these agencies to have a narrative out there that we knew was false. We knew it was false back in 2019 when this was being investigated and covered in Congress, but we also knew it was false during the first Trump administration, and yet he had to deal with it every single day.
Mark, Jason Chaffetz here. Good to see you, my friend. One of our colleagues during our time in Congress was Tulsi Gabbard, and she, now that she's the Director of National Intelligence, released new emails this week showing how James Clapper pushed officials to ignore standard procedures in order to rush out the 2017 intel assessment tying Putin to Trump. Then Director of the NSA, Mike Rogers, emailed Clapper in December of 2016 saying his team raised concerns because they weren't given sufficient access in time to review the underlying intelligence. Clapper replied that more time was not negotiable and that, quote, normal modalities would have been compromised. But this is how Clapper described the intelligence gathering in 2017.
The intelligence community assessment conclusions were reached based on the richness of the information gathered and analyzed and were thoroughly vetted.
Really? I mean, he was under oath when he said that, and yet the documents are proving otherwise. Mark Meadows, what's your question for him? Should he appear before Congress yet again?
Well, I think so, and I will refer to you as Mr. Chairman because I had the honor of serving with you when you were the chairman, and you know that this doesn't pass the smell test, Jason. And quite frankly, what we're seeing released is not actually coordinating with the sworn testimony, and you pointed that out, sworn testimony before Congress. But I think the troubling thing for me, Jason, is as you started to look at all of this was the real pressure. This was not just a normal get me the best information. It was let's get it done. We've got to get it done yesterday. Why? Because they were going to be out of office, and if they were going to initiate this narrative, it had to be done right away.
That's right. It's exactly right.
Mark, Lydia Hu here. Nice to see you this evening. As you are probably aware, Senator Adam Schiff is embroiled in another scandal, thanks to a Democrat whistleblower this time. According to newly released FBI documents, that whistleblower, a former staffer on the House Intel Committee, says They heard then Congressman Schiff tell a group of staffers at a 2017 meeting that they would leak classified information to indict President Trump. When the whistleblower told them that this would be illegal, they responded that, quote, they would not be caught. Well, the DOJ stopped the investigation, claiming congressmen have immunity to all of their speech. Schiff denies any wrongdoing, calling it absolutely and categorically false. But Mark, my question to you is, with this new information, should there be another review of all of this, all these revelations, and could there actually this time be some accountability?
Well, hopefully there will be some accountability, Lydia. But I can tell you the interesting thing here is as they start to talk about speech and debate, his actions had nothing to do with speech and debate. Listen, the only thing that's not surprising to me is the fact that there were leaks coming out of the Democrat operatives, many of them, including Chairman Schiff, I was served with. And yet I can tell you that when we were in Schiffs, oftentimes when it was during the impeachment trials for Donald Trump, where some of these topics we're talking about, we could take a break from the Schiff and go out and find the Democrat talking points of what we discussed in the Schiff already given to the legacy media, and they were asking questions about it. So does it surprise me? No. Should it be investigated further? Absolutely. And those that are guilty should be held accountable.
Chief, it's Kevin. Great to have you on the program tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I want to ask you about James Comey while we have you. He's also in a bit of hot water over these newly released FBI memos. Now, according to the documents, the former director hired his friend, a guy by the name of Daniel Richman, to discuss classified information with him and then to use him as a media liaison. Richman spoke to the media without consulting DOJ officers, and that includes, by the way, the offices of public affairs. And several times, by the way, this did happen. And he did that, and sometimes he would try to get out there and run cover, correct stories that were critical of Comey in this effort to sort of shape the press coverage. But this is what Mr. Comey told Congress in May of 2017. Listen.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Has any classified information relating to President Trump or his associates been declassified and shared with the media?
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, boy. Well, that was then. This is now. So, Chief, I'm wondering, how likely do you think it might be that a court could find that Comey did leak classified information to the press?
Well, I can't really speak to that as much, Kevin, but what I can opine on is this name that you heard, that you mentioned, is not the first time that we've heard this name. In fact, I believe he was classified as a special government employee at one time. But what we also know is that wherever Director Comey went, there was a plethora of reporters that seemed to have unbelievable information and insight into what was going on in the FBI and DOJ. And so I think, if you start looking at the sources that were feeding the information to the press well beyond James Comey, I think you'll start to see really the breadcrumbs that lead back to an FBI that was politicized against Donald Trump.
All right, Mark Meadows, thank you so much for joining us tonight and answering all of our questions. We really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Great to be with you. Take care. God bless.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Jason, this is now 8 years ago, and I believe you were in Congress at the time, right? And it feels like just now, after 8 years, the American public is finally getting the details of possibly what was going on. And, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you know what? We should just move on. It's in the past. We should move on. But we can't move on because if we don't find out what happened, it could happen again.
Yeah, we're finding out that it's worse than ever, and thanks to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has taken the initiative to open this up, and if it weren't for Attorney General Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and others, this would have been covered up even more. One thing I want to add to what Mark Meadows said, because he was spot on. He was exactly right. But let's also remember the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, for the Department of Justice, they made a criminal referral to the DOJ to prosecute several people within the FBI, one of which was accused. The accusation was that he was sharing information, trading that information for dinners and other sorts of favors, and they wanted to prosecute him, and the Department of Justice said, no, they're not going to do that. That happened multiple times, but specifically on the leaking of information and giving information inappropriately in exchange for gifts.
Right.
And yet they still didn't prosecute him. So I'm glad Donald Trump's on it now. They've got a long ways to go. And by the way, there's no reason why the Department of Justice can't just release this information. They don't have to rely on Congress to do it. They gave it to Congress, and now they're encouraging Congress to release it. But DOJ, you can release it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, some of these people, Jim Comey, James Clapper, they were under oath making these statements, right? So, Lydia, what do you think about consequences for people? Are people going to be held accountable? And do you see anybody facing any jail time here?
You know, it kind of goes back to just like a basic principle of us as parents, just kind of tell our kids, you got to tell the truth. You got to tell the truth all the time. And it's really disappointing when you hear allegations that I mean, we just saw it right before our eyes, it's situations where it seemed like, I'm not sure that person was telling the truth under oath, which we all know is a perjury.
Right.
So it seems like there should be some real questions on just like basic truth telling in Congress. You know, I did ask Mr. Meadows there about, you know, accountability, because it does feel like for so many years we've heard this steady drip, drip, drip of information. And you're right, we're just now finally getting, you know, peeling back the layers, and, you know, maybe there can be some accountability. But until we actually see that happening, I just kind of think that some of us will always feel like, where is this going?
Yeah.
When are we going to get there? And I don't know. I just think that the time is now to try to really hold some people to account.
Just real quickly, I do think Congress, particularly Senator or Chairman Grassley, will call those same cast of characters up under oath, and it'll be fascinating. Do they plead the fifth this time, or do they answer the questions? And they're going to play back the tape of how they answered them previously.
Wow.
And can I add one other thing to that, too, is that, you know, just to think about the possible larger consequences of all the things that we've saw unfold over in the past Trump administration, particularly with Senator Adam Schiff and the whole Russiagate, the Russia hoax thing. You know, President Trump acknowledged that yesterday when he was speaking side by side with, you know, Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying, you know, I don't want to misquote him, but it was pointing to that hoax and saying perhaps our relationship would have been different. And you have to wonder how world events could have been steered otherwise if the whole Russiagate thing had not happened.
It is so true. And to that point, you know, all we heard about for 4 years and more than that was Russia, Russia, Russia. Those were the talking points of every Democratic politician out there. And so, Kevin, you've covered Washington for so long. If all of these things are true and these things happened, just characterize the level of scandal that this is. I mean, it seems to be much bigger than a Watergate.
It is a political earthquake, the likes of which this country has never seen. And while I agree with Lydia, I am of the camp that believes nothing big will likely happen. There'll be hearings, there'll be some accusations, maybe even some charges, but will someone actually go to jail, pay the ultimate price? Probably not. But here's what's different. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, these people are very serious. They're very methodical. It'll take time, but I think finally, sometime in the next couple of years, people will be held accountable, and I think that's good for the country because, as you said, if you don't do something now, it very well could happen again.
I mean, it really could.
Yeah.
You know, it really could. All right, moving on now. Coming up on a brand new hour of the Big Weekend Show, Americans are backing Trump's crime crackdown over Sleepy Joe's, but 2 Obama-era officials are slamming the president for militarizing the law. Plus, a Fox News alert. Hurricane Erin has intensified to a Category 5 hurricane as the first major storm of the year. Robert Ray is tracking this hurricane and joins us live for a live report next.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.